You're listening to Shift, Human First Financial Guidance with Ross Marino.
Today, we are once again shifting the conversation with Robert Sofia. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Ross. Good to see you again.
It's good to have you back on the show. I think marketing is probably the most human first activity that any advisor does. So I always love having you on the show and talking about marketing. Maybe everybody doesn't know who you are. So if you could, please take the first 60 seconds, let everybody know who you are and what you do.
I'll do it in 20 seconds.
Nice.
I'm Robert Sofia. I'm the CEO of Snappy Kraken and one of the 3 co-founders. We started the company in 2018. We work with over 6,000 advisors, helping them with all their marketing, from websites and SEO to automations and text message marketing and branding and beyond.
Now that shows you are a true marketer because you did it in 20 instead of 60. And first takeaway for advisors like myself, do it in 20 seconds instead of 60. So how about opening with a nugget? Well, let's start with a tweet that I saw you put out just the other day, and it kind of prompted what I wanted to talk about on the podcast here. It was a study from Michael Kitces about how financial planners actually market their services. You reposted a table that had a long list of ways, but number one really stood out. So could you take a moment, explain what that study was, and then what was number one on the list for marketing their services?
Yeah, it was fascinating. I mean, the way they approach research is very admirable. It's very detailed. They really reach out to the advisor community. They have a lot of reach. And so the goal of the study was to show not what maybe pundits say advisors do, but to ask advisors, what are they actually doing and how is it working? And then they stack ranked those things. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't work. Here's why it works. Here's how it works. Here's what advisors say about it. So great study to read. Shout out to them for that. So we've obviously, taken interest in that as a marketing company. And one of the most fascinating things, which I shared, was they stack ranked probably about 30 different marketing activities, and they contrasted how those activities perform for advisors who have a niche versus advisors who don't have a niche. And by the way, niche, I don't want you to be distracted. Whoever's in the audience and thinks it should be pronounced one way, you're right. I don't care. Either one is fine by me. So niche, but they compared them right next to each other, side by side. And some things almost everything distinctly outperformed when an advisor was focused on a niche.
Well, at the top of the list, I saw SEO. Now, there's a whole bunch of factors or a whole bunch of other ways underneath SEO, and it would be 1 or 2 percentage points one way or the other. But when I saw SEO, it gave an efficiency ranking of 6 for non-niche. Although I do remember at Jolt, you said it's niches and riches, so therefore it has to be niches. Totally agree for marketing. So by all means, niches and riches is just strange. Right. But for the non-niche, it was a 6% efficiency. But then for the niche, it was almost 50%. That was a massive difference in my brain. What do you think's behind that?
Yeah, it's staggering. Look, we have thousands and thousands of websites, and we analyze this data as well. And it's not hard to answer that question because it really is evident when you look at the performance. So let me give you a couple of examples. If you are targeting affluent retirees, for example, words, website copy is going to be very, very difficult to compete because there are so many other thousands of advisors focusing on the same audience. So how to make sure you have a retirement plan that won't outlive your money. You can maintain your lifestyle in retirement and dealing with healthcare costs and guaranteed income and all the things that just thousands and thousands of retirement advisors are talking about are on these websites. And they all find a little bit different spin, but at the core, the content is very similar, and website crawlers know this. So people go online. If they search for these things, it's very likely that you're going to rank low and that the people who get the traffic are going to be the ones who spend millions, and yes, I do mean millions of dollars a month on advertising. People like Ken Fisher, who actually does spend millions of dollars a month on advertising. You just can't compete with that. However, when you have a niche, for example, let's just say you work with technology entrepreneurs. Now, what they go search is going to be different. It allows you the opportunity to address very specific things on your website. Like you might have an article about ESOPs and equity compensation plans for tech startup employees. You might have an article about navigating stock options and RSUs when you work in the tech sector. Or let's say that you work with women in transition, such as divorce, right? Now you have things about how women can rebuild wealth after a divorce, how to navigate alimony, child support, and financial independence after you divorce a wealthy husband, right? Whatever it is. Now, see, then women are searching for that. Tech entrepreneurs are searching for those things. You have way less competition. And also, not to talk too much here, Ross, but then when those people get to your website, they immediately say, oh, this is different. All the other advisors I've seen weren't talking about this stuff. This advisor clearly understands me, and there's your human first connection.
Now, you had a poll recently also on Twitter where you asked about the content that advisors used. And what I want to ask you about today was part of the AI-powered drag and drop email system that you're bringing out, which I know helps generate the content. But it made me think when I saw that poll, the majority of advisors said, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were actually creating their own content. Was that right?
Yeah, I did run a poll and I asked advisors, where are they getting the content that they produce? Are they creating it themselves? Is their team creating it? Are they outsourcing it to an agency, or are they buying it prepackaged? And the vast majority, I believe it was around 86%, it was really high, said that they were producing their own content. Now, I do question whether that actually represents the full advisor population. I think that is partially due to the fact that I ran that poll on Twitter, which is a platform where a lot of people just post their own content. They create their own content. And so the audience that's there is likely the audience that spends more time doing marketing themselves. That's the advisor audience. And I called out financial advisors. I asked financial advisors. So you got to think about most advisors who are not even on that platform, who do not create their own marketing, who have a team or who buy it or who use an agency, would never have even seen that poll. So I know when we look at the industry and just from our own client base, there is a very large cross-section of advisors who take each of those different approaches. So I know if you're on some channels, it's likely they're creators. If you're on others, it's likely they are not. And that's just, I think one of the things that skews that poll a little bit.
And that makes sense. As someone who wrote a book, I often joke that it's my first and last book, because it takes so much time and energy to actually produce it. And when I saw that poll, I thought of content as well. I'd love to produce content. We do this show, but on the practice side, it takes so much time and energy to do it. And that's what kind of caught my attention with an AI-powered system. But before you explain what that is, I just want to ask up front, because I know this is something you have to address. What kind of compliance concerns do you have when you're creating an AI-driven email system?
Yeah, I have some. They are relatively modest concerns, because what's interesting about AI, and we specifically have integrated with OpenAI, which is the creator of ChatGPT. They are not creating anything new. AI does not really create new thought. It is a way to analyze what is already out there and repackage it in new ways. So it is pulling from financial advisor websites and thought leadership and articles and research out there when advisors prompt it for things related to financial topics. So little Easter egg for you. When you asked me about SEO, I quickly typed into our generative AI tool and I asked it for some long tail keyword examples for those audiences. AI generated those. How? Because it knows what long tail keywords are being used on advisor websites that target those audiences. So again, it's not creating anything new. What does this have to do with compliance? most of the content that's out there that it's pulling from has been through a compliance filter. That's one. Secondly, if you go and do some tests with AI yourself, you ask it like, how much should I invest in the stock market? How soon can I retire? Almost without exception, it will tell you things right away. It will say, this depends greatly on your own personal circumstances. This advice is general in nature. It should not be construed as personal financial advice. There is actually built-in compliance intelligence generally in that AI already. Third, put all that aside, you still can't completely trust it. And that's why you need a human at the helm. And for us, that means the advisor first and their compliance department second. So what we do is the advisors generate it. They have to proof it before it goes out. It goes to compliance. Compliance reviews it. That is a safeguard. That is an important set of guardrails right now. That being said, we are actually in the process of vetting companies that will also compliance review the copy you're generating with AI, because it's not difficult. Think about how intelligent these language models are. It's not difficult to program it to watch out for non-compliant language. So actually, over time, I expect the compliance concerns of AI to virtually vanish.
That makes sense. Now, you mentioned something right before that I want you to define because it ties into SEO and niches. You said long tail words. Yeah. So, or search terms. Could you define that and explain how that relates to SEO, which is really what you were talking about up front?
Yeah, exactly. So there are different types of searches that people do in search engines naturally. And most of us have learned that when we go and do a search, the more specific we are, the better the outcome we get. But in the 90s and 2000s, marketers didn't have to be that specific. And it's easy for a financial advisor to assume that everybody is just searching, should I invest in annuities? Now, that is a controversial topic that people ask all the time. And that sentence, that question is very, very highly competed for, because all of the annuity companies and all of the anti-annuity advisors and all of the insurance companies that create annuities and all of the, I don't want to give Ken Fisher so much airtime here, but that guy's got like so much should you buy an annuity content out there. You got a lot of competition for that keyword. However, there is much less competition for more specific, longer keywords. So if I were to use the annuity example, and I'm just like waxing on here, I could be much more specific, and I could say, is an equity indexed annuity beneficial for someone who is in ABC situation, right? That fits the profile of the ideal client that I have. Now that's a much, if I wanted to do anything about annuities, that is an example of how I would do it. Same thing as, I gave you some examples earlier. If you want cryptocurrency, that's not going to get you any traffic, too much competition. Cryptocurrency investment opportunities for technology entrepreneurs, different. If you want helping women through financial transitions, that's going to be very difficult. But if you put the single mother guide to managing money after a divorce, now see, that's much more specific. That's a long tail keyword. So the point is less general, more specific, you will get better results.
And that ties right into niche. So it makes total sense where instead of just being generic in what you put out there, you actually make it extremely specific, even longer search type questions, and that's going to drive more traffic. And to me, that makes sense from the 6% efficiency for non-niche specific SEO up to 49%, almost 50% if you're going to be specific. So last question here. Is there a mindset or a belief that many advisors have that hurts their marketing efforts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of them, and every Every business has them, but advisors struggle with this especially. If you were to imagine a bar chart with a set of bars on it, okay, gradually stepping up higher and higher. On the low end down here, you have like online content that's text only. And then you have online content that's voice. And then you have online content that's video. And then you have live streaming content and webinars, right? And then you have in person. Okay. This is like a climbing chart of trust building, effective marketing activities. So down here on the low end of the spectrum with internet activity, tweets and blog posts. And if you look at the Kitces study, you'll see this stuff ranks lower in performance. And then all the way up, what you have is this impact that your marketing has. And at the very, very pinnacle is in person. That's where you gain the most trust. Mm-hmm. That's where you gain the fastest clients. That's where you go from handshake to client in the shortest amount of time. This is where advisors have always played. Now we're in a brave new world. I mean, there's social media, there's AI content generation. You've got to have these virtuous cycles of content and communication in your business. But all of that content, guess where it falls on the trust spectrum? It's way down here. So what does this have to do with the advisor's mindset shift? This is where I'm getting to the point now. They think that all this should perform like this. They think it should be just as fast. They think it should be just as effective. They think it should work just as well. And the truth is it doesn't. So what that leads them to do is give up on all of this too quickly. So all of this other content that is very important in our modern age, which requires more volume, more consistency, more time to really pay off. And it does, but they won't give it the time. They won't give it the consistency. They won't give it the volume. They give up too easily, too quickly. So the mindset shift that has to happen is advisors have to realize, hey, this is great, but I can't meet with 1,000 people. So I got to use all this to curate and filter and get people to hear so I can eventually build all that great trust when I meet them in person. But these things are just as important. They take just as much commitment. And if I do these things well, this will perform even better. I'll have more opportunities, but they just give up too early.
Well, early in my career, I certainly can resemble that remark of, I tried that once, it didn't work, so I stopped. We all did. We've all done that. Hopefully we don't do it as much anymore. Robert, Sofia, thanks for being on the show. Always insightful. Really enjoyed time out at Jolt and love the work that Snappy Kraken's doing. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Ross. Likewise.
Thank you for listening to Shift with Ross Marino. Please visit humanfirst.live to learn more. This show is for general information purposes only and is not intended to provide recommendations or advice. Speak with a legal, tax, or financial advisor before making any decisions. Past performance references are historical and do not guarantee future results.